Well, actually, I was kind of curious about what you were saying earlier about leading the way with technology, and a lot of people are. I know with teachers, the frustration for technology has been kind of through the roof because it was just that night and day change. And a lot of them are thinking, well, when we go back into the classroom, then we're just going to kind of go back into the way things were before. How do you think technology, or how do you envision continuing the technology that we've already acquired and kind of like taking us into the future?
Yes, I think that's a great question. And I appreciate the frustration, because I myself am frustrated every time we have to implement a new system, and we implement new systems like every 2 years. We just implemented an entirely new dictation platform 2 weeks ago, and I'm still like fumbling through it. You know, my days are longer because I'm like, well, I can't find what I need to put into my report. So, and I had a lot of anxiety leading up to the new training, because as we get older, I'm getting older, it's harder for me to adapt to these new systems, right? Which is why in my platform on my website, I talk about how it's important to me that teachers have appropriate training and support structure. And that's not just a few hours, right? To expect you to then spend all your personal time. We really have to make sure that, and that's where we need to hear from teachers, what do you feel is sufficient? And for some people, it's a little time. For other people, it's a lot more. And we need to be able to accommodate for what each person's needs are. And so I really think that providing a high level of support with technology training is really key. I think it would be a disservice for us to go completely backwards after you all have spent a significant amount of time working to put all of your educational material into an electronic format. I just think that that would be such a waste of all of the effort. I mean, I know that the teachers are working so long, so hard, working weekends in the evenings that you're not used to doing. Trust me, I'm very aware. Like I said, my sister is now grading all weekend and keeps telling me about it. So I understand, but to put all that effort in and then to let it go just seems like all was done in vain. So I would try and figure out, I think again, when I talk about leveraging technology to help you become more efficient, right? So some of these projects and lessons that you have created into an electronic format, you could continue to use them in the classroom setting, while that gives you some free time to perhaps do some grading while the students are watching the lesson that you already created, right? And then you can spend that more time after with just discussion with your class, and not necessarily having to verbally teach the same lesson over and over. You have the lesson, you let them watch it together in the class while you can accomplish some grading. So now you become more efficient in not having to do that after school or in the evening anymore, right? So I think there's a lot of creative ways to figure out how to utilize what you've done and what you've spent a lot of time on to make your job easier. And then you can spend more time doing things that you enjoy with your students. Because sometimes the joy is more in hands-on projects or discussion, right? You can tell your student, your homework tonight is to watch that lesson so you don't have to teach it in class. And then you can spend time in the class talking about it and having in-depth conversation, which is probably more enjoyable than just talking at them, right? So I think there's so many ways that we can be creative to address this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but definitely I hear you about just, it's overwhelming. And I really do think that we need to make sure that there's enough infrastructure and support. And this is something that I know that Mr. Hubbard is the DTL lead, and I've been asking him for months, like, how much support are the teachers getting for the technology? Like, how much time did you guys get? I definitely asked him, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I think where we had a huge weakness is that not many people were trained already on that. Like it had to be outside trainers that we had to rely on. And when it's like 2 people for the entire district, it was It was
Yeah,
nice.
that's not sufficient. I mean, that's not enough. And you know what we're seeing now as parents, because I've been having a lot of conversations with parents as well. And so what parents, and myself included, we see teachers diverting away from Canvas into doing their own thing again, right? Because you're frustrated, right? Because you're like, this is too clunky and cumbersome. I want to go back to my old dictation system because I'm like, this is not working. But what's happening, the parents, we see the teachers diverting away from that platform. What I would love to see in the ideal world is that the district provides enough support so that everyone stays on the same system, because it makes it really hard for the parents and it makes it really hard for the teachers flipping between two systems. It's hard for all of us. But I understand that people divert naturally back to what is easy, comfortable, and they know works. And so I see a lot of teachers saying, don't write me on Canvas, write me on my write me on my Gmail. Or write me on my DUSD email, right? But I'm not responding through Canvas anymore. I mean, this is happening. And then a lot of parents we're having dissension between our children, like a lot of breakdown in parent-children relationships because Canvas is not being used for all of the grading. And so your child can have an F one day, and then you as the parent are reprimanding your child significantly. And then the next day your child has an A, and you're like, and they're trying to tell you, I did all the work. And you're like, no, you didn't. Canvas says you have an F. Well, there's all these different platforms being used for grading, right? And they're not communicating. And so I think as a district, we need to figure that out. We need to figure out one platform that everyone's happy with. And whether or not that's Canvas, that's up to, I think, the teachers to really give input and decide. Because I know other districts, particularly San Ramon, is looking at different platforms like Google. They're looking at Microsoft Teams. They're looking at larger platforms that can be used for the long term, because they realize that you're not likely going back completely to the old school way before COVID. So I really do think that the teachers will need to collaborate and decide if Canvas is the answer. And I don't know what the district agreement is, but one platform will reduce the frustration for parents and teachers. I think so.
Yeah. Speaking as a parent and a teacher, I definitely agree. Thank you.